The result in Baltimore changed everything, and there's no way around it. The Ravens took care of business against the Packers in Week 17, winning 41-24, and they did it without Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry ran all over Green Bay, and that outcome immediately shifted the pressure squarely onto Pittsburgh. What that means in real terms is simple. The Pittsburgh Steelers now control their own destiny, but only if they handle what's directly in front of them. This afternoon in Cleveland, against a 3-12 Browns team, the Steelers have a clear opportunity to clinch the AFC North Division Championship before even getting to the season finale against Baltimore. There's no scoreboard watching, no relying on help from anyone else. Win, and the division is theirs. Lose, and everything gets a lot more complicated, fast. Smash the like button right now if, like me, you already have that nervous feeling in your stomach that only a Steelers fan knows. And please drop your "here we go" in the comments. This is exactly the kind of moment that defines seasons in Pittsburgh. The Steelers aren't being asked to do something unrealistic or miraculous. On paper, this is a game they should win if they truly believe they are a playoff-caliber team capable of making a real run. Cleveland is struggling, severely undermanned, and likely without its top running backs. They're starting rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders, and the roster around him reflects a team already looking toward the future. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh comes into this game riding a 3-game winning streak, with the run game clicking and the defense beginning to show signs of life again after a stretch earlier in the year where it simply wasn't meeting expectations. And yet, that's exactly why the pressure feels heavier than normal. Games like this are never just about talent or records. They're about mindset. Walking into a division rival stadium with a chance to celebrate a division title on their field is a powerful motivator, but it also tests focus. If the Steelers walk out of Cleveland wearing AFC North Championship hats and shirts while Browns fans watch it happen, that's a moment that would live forever for this fan base. But that only happens if Pittsburgh treats this game with the seriousness it demands. Because if they don't, the consequences are immediate. A loss today doesn't just delay the celebration. It creates an early playoff scenario in Week 18 against the Ravens, with the division on the line. And unlike today, that game comes with real complications. DK Metcalf will not be available for that matchup. That's not speculation, that's reality. Losing tomorrow opens the door wide for Baltimore to come into the final week and steal the division championship at the last possible moment. That's the nightmare scenario the Steelers are trying to avoid. This is why today's game isn't just another week on the schedule. It's a fork in the road. Win, and you secure the division and likely give yourself a crucial week to reset before the playoffs. Lose, and suddenly there's no margin for error, no breathing room, and no rest. Everything becomes sudden death earlier than it needs to be. The stakes are even clearer when you look at the situation surrounding TJ Watt. According to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, Watt practiced in a limited capacity this week and will be ready whenever Pittsburgh truly needs him. That detail matters. If the Steelers win against Cleveland, the path is straightforward. Watt likely gets another week of rest and returns for the first round of the playoffs. If the Steelers lose, there's no debate. Watt is playing in Week 18 against Baltimore because that game essentially becomes a playoff game. That's how thin the margin is right now. Even when Watt does return, expectations are realistic. He's been out, and there's a strong chance he'll be on some level of pitch count. But the Steelers aren't empty-handed there. Nick Herbig is off the injury report and ready to go. Alex Highsmith is available, and the defense has enough depth to rotate effectively when Watt comes back. In many ways, this is the kind of balanced edge rotation the Steelers have needed all season, and it shouldn't drastically disrupt what they're building defensively. Beyond the division race, the broader AFC playoff picture adds another layer. Houston's win over the Chargers reshuffled the wild card standings, pushing the Bills into the 5th seed and dropping the Chargers to 7th. And if you're being honest as a Steelers fan, Buffalo is the matchup you want the least. The Bills know how to play in the cold, they have Josh Allen, and they already came into Pittsburgh earlier this season and dominated. That's not a hypothetical concern. That's a memory. That's why games like Buffalo versus Philadelphia suddenly matter to Steelers fans, because seeding isn't just about getting in, it's about who you have to face once you're there. All of this circles back to one unavoidable truth. The Steelers have an opportunity right now to take control of their fate. No excuses, no help needed, no complicated scenarios. Just go into Cleveland and win a game you should win. If this team believes it belongs in the playoffs and believes it deserves its first AFC North title in half a decade, this is where it proves it. So with everything on the line, with the division, playoff seeding, rest, and momentum all tied to one result, how do you see this game playing out tomorrow in Cleveland? And do you believe the Steelers are ready to seize this moment? What makes this situation even more intense is that the Steelers are not walking into this game blind to what's at stake. Everyone in that locker room knows the math. They know a win simplifies everything. It locks up the AFC North, removes the chaos of Week 18, and allows the coaching staff to manage health instead of desperation. It changes how the next 2 weeks are approached. Instead of preparing for survival, you prepare for positioning, recovery, and momentum. That's a massive difference in January football. The Steelers also know this is the type of game that shapes how the rest of the league views them. Beating a struggling Browns team doesn't earn style points, but failing to do so would reinforce every doubt that's been thrown at this roster all season. This team has heard it all: inconsistent offense, questions about whether the defense can still dominate without TJ Watt on the field, skepticism about whether this group can truly compete with the AFC's elite. Tomorrow isn't about silencing everyone at once, but it is about refusing to give critics fresh ammunition. There's also a psychological edge that comes with earning something rather than having it handed to you. The Steelers aren't in a position where they need another team to lose for them to succeed. They don't have to sit back and wait. They can go out, take the field, and decide the division themselves. Doing it in Cleveland, against a division rival, only adds to the meaning. Those games are rarely clean, rarely easy, and rarely forgettable. That's exactly why this moment carries weight. From a football standpoint, everything points to Pittsburgh having the advantage if they play disciplined football. The run game has been productive, and that matters in a hostile road environment. Controlling the clock, limiting mistakes, and forcing a rookie quarterback into uncomfortable situations is the formula. The defense doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be opportunistic. With Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig available, pressure off the edge is still very much part of the identity, even without Watt on the field this week. If the Steelers dictate terms early, this game can tilt in their favor quickly. But if there's one thing Steelers fans know too well, it's that division games don't always follow logic. Records don't always matter. Injuries don't always decide outcomes. What matters is urgency. And right now, urgency belongs to Pittsburgh. A win brings relief, confidence, and clarity. A loss brings tension, risk, and a do-or-die scenario against Baltimore with no safety net. That's why this game feels bigger than Cleveland's record. It's about whether the Steelers can step on the field with a championship-level mindset when the door is open. It's about whether they can close when the opportunity is real and immediate. This isn't the playoffs yet, but it feels like a qualifying round. Handle business now, and the path forward becomes far more manageable. If the Steelers do what they're supposed to do tomorrow, the conversation shifts instantly. Instead of worrying about Week 18 chaos, fans start talking about matchups, rest, and how dangerous this team could be if it enters the postseason healthy and confident. Instead of playing from behind, Pittsburgh gets to breathe, reset, and prepare. Now it comes down to execution. No excuses, no shortcuts. Just one more statement that this team is ready for January football. And even beyond the immediate stakes, there's a deeper layer to why this moment matters so much for Pittsburgh. This season has been a constant test of identity. Early on, expectations were inflated, especially on defense, and when the results didn't immediately match the hype, frustration followed. Losses piled up, narratives hardened, and for a stretch it felt like this team was drifting somewhere between contender and pretender. What they've done over the last few weeks is pull themselves back into control, not by flash, but by grit, adjustments, and persistence. That's very on brand for Steelers football, and tomorrow is the chance to validate that approach. Winning the division isn't just a line in the standings. It's proof that the locker room stayed together, that the coaching staff navigated adversity, and that the players responded when their backs were against the wall. It's also about reclaiming territory in the AFC North. For years, this division has been a grind, and recently, it's been Baltimore standing in the way at the end. Clinching the North before even seeing the Ravens again flips that dynamic completely. It sends a message that Pittsburgh didn't just survive the chaos of the season, they rose above it. There's also the emotional aspect for the fan base. Steelers fans don't measure success in moral victories. They measure it in banners, playoff games, and championships. A division title is the first real checkpoint on that path. It changes how you walk into the postseason. You're no longer sneaking in or hoping to catch fire at the right time. You're entering as a team that earned its position, that won when it had to, and that forced everyone else to adjust. But all of that potential still hinges on one thing: taking care of business. None of the larger conversations matter if the Steelers come out flat, undisciplined, or careless in Cleveland. That's the danger of games like this. They can slip away if you assume instead of execute. The Browns may be struggling, but they're still a division opponent, still playing at home, and still capable of turning a game ugly if given the opportunity. Pittsburgh has to dictate the tone from the opening drive and never let doubt creep in. This is where leadership shows. This is where preparation shows. This is where the mental toughness of the roster shows. You don't wait for Week 18. You don't wait for help. You finish the job when it's right in front of you. By the time the final whistle blows tomorrow afternoon, the Steelers will either be celebrating a long-awaited AFC North Division championship or staring down the most stressful possible path into the playoffs. There's no gray area anymore. The season has funneled down to this moment, this game, this opportunity. Now it's your turn. Do you trust this team to close it out on the road, lock up the division, and take control of its postseason destiny? Or do you feel like this is heading toward one last high-pressure showdown in Week 18? And this is where perspective really matters, because moments like this don't come around every season. You don't always reach late December with the division sitting right in front of you, completely in your hands, with a chance to end the conversation early. Too often, seasons drag into the final week with chaos, injuries, and scoreboard watching dictating everything. Right now, the Steelers have a chance to avoid all of that. That alone makes this game heavier than the record next to Cleveland's name. Inside that locker room, there's no mystery about what a win represents. It's relief, first and foremost. Relief from pressure, from uncertainty, from the physical toll of having to push starters in a winner-take-all Week 18 scenario. It's also confidence, the kind that only comes when you answer a direct challenge. You don't get confidence from talking about potential. You get it from finishing a job when everyone knows what's at stake. There's also the reality that the Steelers, as currently built, benefit enormously from rest and structure. Any extra time to manage health, especially on defense, is invaluable. Being able to reintegrate TJ Watt on your terms instead of out of desperation changes the entire equation. Being able to prepare for a playoff opponent instead of scrambling to survive changes how a team practices, how it studies film, and how it approaches January football. Those edges matter when margins are razor thin. At the same time, there's a warning baked into this opportunity. If you don't take it, the consequences aren't just theoretical. A loss drags the Steelers straight into the storm. Week 18 becomes unavoidable pressure against Baltimore, with the division on the line and no room for mistakes. That's not where you want to be, especially knowing what's missing offensively and how brutal that matchup can be when everything is on the line. That's the path the Steelers can eliminate with one focused, disciplined performance. This game is about maturity. It's about whether this team understands how rare it is to be in this position and whether it has learned from the moments earlier in the season when opportunities slipped away. Good teams put themselves in position. Great teams capitalize when the door is open. Tomorrow is the test of which one the Steelers truly are. By the end of this game, the narrative will change one way or the other. Either the Steelers reassert control over the AFC North and walk into the final stretch with clarity and confidence, or they invite chaos back into the conversation. There's no middle ground anymore. This is the checkpoint, the crossroads, the moment where the season either stabilizes or spirals. Now we wait to see which version of this team shows up when it matters most. What can't be ignored anymore is how thin the line really is between stability and chaos for this team right now. One result decides whether the Steelers enter January with control or with anxiety. That's not exaggeration. That's the reality of how the AFC North has shaped up. The work they've done over the last few weeks bought them this opportunity, but it didn't guarantee anything. Opportunities still have to be converted, and that's the hardest part. There's a sense that this game is as much mental as it is physical. The Browns don't have the record, the health, or the momentum that Pittsburgh has, but they do have freedom. They're not carrying expectations. They're not carrying consequences. The Steelers are. And how a team handles that weight often decides outcomes more than talent alone. That's why focus becomes the real storyline. Avoiding turnovers, avoiding penalties, avoiding those small lapses that can suddenly turn a controlled game into a stressful one. Pittsburgh doesn't need to dominate for 4 quarters. They need to stay connected, stay composed, and keep their foot on the gas when the opportunity to separate presents itself. This is also where leadership across the roster becomes critical. Veterans setting the tone early, coaches reinforcing urgency without panic, younger players understanding that this is the moment where details matter more than ever. You don't get style points for how you win this game, but you absolutely pay the price if you don't. That understanding has to be present from the opening kickoff. If the Steelers do what they're capable of, the reward is significant. A division title ends years of waiting. It reshapes how this season is remembered. It reframes the narrative around this roster and this coaching staff. It turns a year filled with questions into one defined by results. And maybe most importantly, it gives this team a chance to attack the postseason instead of surviving into it. But nothing about that is automatic. That's why this moment feels so tense. The door is open, but it hasn't been walked through yet. Everything that comes next depends on what happens on that field in Cleveland. There's also something symbolic about where this game is being played. Cleveland has never been a comfortable place for Pittsburgh, regardless of records or circumstances. It's a division battleground where games tend to get ugly, emotional, and unpredictable. That history is part of what makes this such a revealing test. Championship teams don't wait for perfect conditions. They impose themselves in hostile environments, especially when the stakes are clear. The Steelers aren't chasing momentum anymore. They're defending it. That's a different challenge. It requires discipline to avoid playing tight, and confidence to avoid playing reckless. The best teams find balance in moments like this, understanding that urgency doesn't mean panic. It means precision. Every drive matters. Every stop matters. Every decision matters a little more when one outcome simplifies everything and the other invites chaos. What's fascinating is how quickly the narrative could flip. One clean win, and the conversation becomes entirely forward-looking. Suddenly, it's about who this team matches up best against, how dangerous the defense can be once fully healthy, and whether this group has the kind of edge that travels in January. That's the reward sitting on the table. Not promises, not projections, but earned positioning. And if that doesn't happen, the emotional cost is real. The pressure doubles. The margin disappears. The Ravens loom with everything on the line, and the Steelers are forced into a position they could have avoided. That's the contrast that defines this moment. This game is the difference between control and confrontation. This is where seasons either calm down or spiral. Pittsburgh has done the hard part by putting itself here. Now comes the hardest part of all, finishing. No matter how it unfolds, this is the kind of moment fans remember, because it tells you exactly who a team is when there's nowhere left to hide. The answer comes on the field, not in theory. And if that doesn't happen, the emotional cost is real. The pressure doubles. The margin disappears. The Ravens loom with everything on the line, and the Steelers are forced into a position they could have avoided. That's the contrast that defines this moment. This game is the difference between control and confrontation. This is where seasons either calm down or spiral. Pittsburgh has done the hard part by putting itself here. Now comes the hardest part of all, finishing. No matter how it unfolds, this is the kind of moment fans remember, because it tells you exactly who a team is when there's nowhere left to hide. The answer comes on the field, not in theory.